Never received an allowance? What do you mean?
What? This bombshell dropped during a conversation with my father-in-law one day. I couldn't believe something like this was happening behind my back. My name is Emma, and I'm 29. I've been living with my husband John since we got married 4 years ago. So, this happened on a particular day. When I came home from work, my usually late-arriving husband was already home. I sensed something was off just by looking at him. Cans of beer and highball drinks were scattered all over the floor, and his face was flushed red. "Whoa, John, what's going on?" As I rushed over, he snapped. "Enough! I can't take it anymore." "What do you mean you can't take it? And since when do you drink this much?" "That's my business." "Darn it, my lousy boss." "Lousy boss?" John complains about his company, constantly bad-mouthing his boss and colleagues. Something must have gone wrong at work today, too. I decided to try and calm him down.
It's been a tough day, huh? I'm making your favorite stew for dinner tonight. Let's eat together.
Despite my upbeat attitude, his facial expression remained unchanged. In fact, he seemed even more irritated. My husband kept drinking, so I decided to speak up. "Hey, John, are you okay? You have work tomorrow. Maybe you should get some sleep." He then let out a big sigh.
I'm done, Emma. I'm not going to work tomorrow.
"What? Not going to work? What's going on? Did he get into a fight with his boss?" I decided to probe further. "What do you mean you're not going tomorrow? Did something happen at work?"
No, I simply got fired.
"Fired?" A word I never expected to hear. Even I was taken aback. Wait a minute. Fired? Why so suddenly? That's too abrupt." "Don't ask me. They just told me out of the blue. I don't know if it's poor management or cost cutting, but honestly, I'm done with that place. I feel relieved now." "Done with it, you say?" To be honest, I was anything but relieved. We could afford our current home because both of us were working. Expenses for groceries, bills, and even money sent to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Anyway, I've been fired. Just let me do as I please for today. My husband was seriously drunk and out of control. If he doesn't find a new job, we won't be able to continue sending money to his parents. With that thought, I decided to contact my father-in-law when the time was right. The next morning, as expected, I found my husband asleep on the sofa. Empty cans were strewn everywhere, indicating he had been drinking late into the night. After cleaning up the cans, I called my father-in-law. "Hello, is this father-in-law? Sorry for calling so early." "Oh, Emma. What's going on?" "Well, it's hard to say, but John was suddenly fired." "What? John got fired? Is this for real?" "Yes. He mentioned something about poor management and cutting personnel costs." "That's sudden." As I explained the situation to father-in-law, I felt terrible. After all, it was thanks to him and mother-in-law that my husband had his job. Ever since we got married, he was addicted to slot machines. In the beginning, I had no idea about his gambling habit and cheerfully saw him off to work each morning. "Take care, have a good day." "Yeah, I'll be late because of overtime today." "Don't push yourself too hard." I had always assumed that he was genuinely working hard. But when I noticed a tobacco smell coming from my husband, who never smokes, I instantly felt something was off. I confronted him right away. He defended himself by saying he started smoking due to stress. "No way. You used to hate smoking so much." My husband's behavior keeps getting stranger by the day. The kind and gentle man he once was is gone, and he's getting increasingly irritable. One day, he stopped hiding the fact that he was going to the casino. Even worse, he started pouring his entire salary and savings into gambling. He doesn't even care about skipping work anymore. All that matters to him is whether he wins or loses that day. Hey, are you really not going to work anymore?
Shut up! It's none of your business. I'm using my own money, so stay out of it.
With that, he rudely dismisses me and hurries out of the house. Then, as always, he comes home after losing all his money. When he hit rock bottom, he even asked me for money.
I'll double it and pay you back. Just lend me $300. I'm telling you, tomorrow's gonna be good. You can't lend me a few $100s when your husband is in trouble?
His character keeps changing due to gambling. The gentle husband I once knew is long gone. Eventually, he started borrowing money just to gamble. I finally lost it at this point.
Wait, what are you doing? Borrowing money to play slots is absurd, don't you think?
He doesn't show any sign of remorse, no matter how much I press him. In fact, he gets defensive and says it's my fault he had to borrow money.
What? I had to take out a loan because you wouldn't lend me money.
This guy's totally addicted to gambling. If I don't stop him now, we'll go bankrupt.
Are you kidding me? I didn't lend you the money because I wanted you to quit playing slots. I'm covering all our living expenses since our savings are gone, and you still blame me? Just lend me the money. I'll win at the slots and prove it. Just listen to me. Have you ever hit a big win? I don't think so. Stop chasing illusions and face reality. Stop interfering with my entertainment.
I wish he would at least stay within the bounds of reason. But my husband was fully addicted to gambling. This reckless behavior was tearing our marriage apart. No matter how much I tried to get through to him, he wouldn't listen. I was starting to lose hope. Days became long as I was consumed by worry. It was my father-in-law and mother-in-law who finally stepped in and set him straight.
Do you even realize you have a family? You're racking up debt over slot machines. Apologize to Emma now. Yeah. You have an amazing wife and you're ruining it. If you keep this up, she'll divorce you.
Father-in-law and mother-in-law scolded him time and again, stressing the importance of marriage and family. Finally, he broke down and apologized.
Emma, I'm really sorry. I swear, no more slot machines. Please forgive me.
Afterwards, my father-in-law said this to me. Emma, what our son did is inexcusable. We've also put you through so much. If you can, please find it in you to forgive him just this once. Seeing the desperation in my in-laws' apology, I decided to give my husband another chance. From there, it was father-in-law and mother-in-law who took on his debt and even helped him find a new job. Until he got his finances stable, they even sent us living expenses. It was thanks to father-in-law and mother-in-law that we could continue living as we had been. I was grateful from the bottom of my heart and sent them $500 every month to repay the favor. But now, if my husband loses his job, we won't be able to send them anything. I apologized to father-in-law over the phone.
Father-in-law, I'm really sorry. I can't believe this is happening while I'm still here.
Don't worry about it. It's the company's decision, right? You're not at fault. Father-in-law's kind words touched me deeply. However, I still have to break more difficult news. So, I'm really sorry,
but I don't think we can continue sending money to you and mother-in-law anymore.
Then father-in-law said, in a puzzled tone.
Remittance? Never received anything like that, you know.
My mind went blank at father-in-law's response.
You mean you didn't get the money I've been sending every month? The $500? We've been doing it consistently, haven't we?
What are you talking about? I even checked with my wife just now. She doesn't know anything about it either.
What?
That couldn't be right. I had been scrimping and saving last month, put $500 in an envelope, and given it to my husband. The idea that it never reached father-in-law and mother-in-law.
Emma, what's going on here?
I don't know myself. But it's true that I've been giving my husband money every month to pass on to you.
Father-in-law spoke up again after hearing my desperate plea.
Emma, can I come over tonight? And let's keep this between us for now, okay?
All right. I had definitely been giving my husband the $500. If it hadn't reached father-in-law and mother-in-law, there's only one explanation: my husband. I can't believe this. He must have been using the money for himself. Unforgivable. I'll make him confess everything and he will face the consequences. An hour later, father-in-law and mother-in-law showed up at our house. When they walked into the living room, my husband looked surprised.
Dad, Mom? What are you doing here?
He was clearly rattled. It was obvious he was hiding something.
John, is there something you'd like to tell us?
Father-in-law indirectly confronted him, but my husband pretended not to know.
What are you talking about? Emma must be as confused as I am, so could you just leave?
I couldn't take it anymore and yelled at my husband.
Stop using me. Just tell the truth, now.
My husband looked at me with wide eyes.
What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. What happened to the money I've been giving you to pass on to your father and mother?
It was obvious that my husband was flustered by my questioning.
About that. Your parents said they never received any money. But I've been giving it to you every month for the last 2 years. Where did it all go? No, it's not what you think, Emma. There's a reason for this. A reason? Do tell. Where did that money vanish to? Explain it in a way we'll understand. Go on.
My husband's face turned increasingly pale, his earlier bravado gone.
What? Can't say? Don't tell me you've been using it yourself?
Both his parents and I glared at him. Finally realizing he couldn't lie his way out, my husband opened his mouth.
I'm sorry. I've been using it on slot machines. What? Slot machines? You've got to be joking.
It was the last thing I wanted to hear. Even after everything that happened in the past, he was gambling again.
I can't believe this. You promised you'd never touch slots again. We decided to send money to your parents as a way to make amends for all the trouble you've caused them. What are you thinking?
As I yelled at him, tears spilled down my cheeks. Was I the only one who thought we'd finally be able to give back to his parents? My vision blurred from the tears. His mother patted my back gently.
Just to confirm, is it true that you got laid off due to company reasons?
At his father's question, my husband visibly flinched.
Yes, it's true. John, if there's a time to correct the record, it's now. If we find out you're lying.
Before his father could finish, my husband hurriedly apologized to us.
I'm sorry. The truth is, I was fired due to my poor work performance. It wasn't due to company downsizing or cost cutting.
I was speechless at my husband's words. completely dumbfounded. His dad, father-in-law, quickly pressed on.
What do you mean by work attitude? What the heck have you been doing?
Actually, they found out I've been skipping work to go to the casino.
Oh, this is hopeless.
The moment I heard that, everything felt utterly ridiculous. I had forgiven his past and decided to start fresh, to support each other. What was all my effort for?
Are you kidding me?
His dad exploded in anger.
How many times do we have to say it? Grow up and act responsibly, especially when you have a family. And yet, you pull this stupid stunt again?
As his mom, my mother-in-law, quietly wept beside me, I couldn't even shed a tear. All I could do was look at my pathetic husband, who just kept apologizing. Facing the enraged father-in-law, my husband kept on making excuses without end.
But I'll do better at my next job, okay? It was just bad luck this time. That's it. Let's get a divorce.
The words slipped out unconsciously.
WH. Emma? Divorce? Why, you're joking, right?
To my distraught husband, I unleashed my pent-up anger.
A joke? You think I'm joking in this situation? But isn't divorce a bit extreme for this? Extreme? Are you kidding me? Do you even understand what you've done? It's no different than embezzlement.
My voice quivered with anger.
It's too late. What? You betrayed us twice. I have no confidence in spending my life with someone like that. We're getting a divorce. I can't believe this.
His dad, who had been watching, nodded in agreement.
We don't consider you our son anymore. From now on, we cut our parental ties. Wait a minute. Emma. Mom. Dad. You're joking, right? Forgive me, please.
My husband was pleading through his tears, but our minds were made up. There was no turning back. I had him fill out the divorce papers right there in front of his parents.
Thank you for everything. Goodbye.
With my packed bags and the divorce papers in hand, I left the apartment.
Emma. Wait. Let's talk this over one more time. I won't do it again. I promise. Wait for me, Emma.
He screamed after me the entire time, but I never looked back. It seems his parents had the same resolve. They moved far away right after this incident, making sure he couldn't rely on them anymore. I haven't kept tabs on him since. Rumor has it, the debts from his gambling have piled up and he's in a tight spot. Now, he's apparently scraping by, running away from creditors. Hearing about his predicament doesn't stir any feelings in me. It's all his own doing. On the other hand, I've been living a fulfilling life. I still maintain a good relationship with his parents. We even meet up for meals during my days off. Marrying him was a mistake, but meeting such wonderful in-laws has become a treasure for me. Going forward, I want to give back to them as much as I can.
I never had any interest in women to begin with, so I never wanted to get married. But I did because my mom insisted I marry you. Now that mom's gone, I see no reason to have a wife at all.
These hurtful words were hurled at me by my husband, Thomas. This happened the day Thomas just returned from a business trip. A photo fell out of his wallet. It showed Thomas, a woman in her 30s, and a young boy, all looking happy together. Almost like a family photo. Folded up small and tucked with the photo was a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition, already filled out with Thomas's name, suggesting he wanted a divorce from me, perhaps to marry this woman. I brought this up with my relatives, Robert and Jennifer. When I consulted them about what I should do, they came up with a suggestion. So, while Thomas was away for a week, I quickly filed for divorce and implemented the plan Jennifer had thought of. Now, I wonder how Thomas will react to the drastically changed home upon his return. My name is Lisa, a 45-year-old housewife. I've been married for over 20 years to the son of a wealthy family. We have no children. That's because Thomas, the only son of his elderly parents, always wanted to be the center of attention and disliked children. Yet, from what I've seen, his parents were both good people who didn't seem to spoil him. He just grew up to be a man with a strong sense of possessiveness. Our parents introduced us. The first time we met, he seemed disinterested in women. I wondered if he really intended to marry. Seeing Thomas, he struck me as someone who met me because his parents told him to, which was rare even back then, making me hesitant about marriage. However, Sandra, my mother-in-law, was an old acquaintance of my mother, and I had met her several times as a child. Kind and gentle, Sandra really knew me. She took my hand and said kindly,
I'm sure you'll make Thomas happy, Lisa.
Those words moved me. I thought, if such a kind mother raised him, he must be a good person. So, I decided to marry him. After getting married, we started living with his parents, but 2 years later, Mark, my father-in-law, passed away in his 60s. Sandra became deeply depressed and soon needed care due to a sudden illness. As Thomas was busy being a company president, I mainly took care of Sandra with the help of home health aides. 20 years passed. Despite my devoted care, Sandra quietly passed away. Losing her, whom I loved dearly, left me devastated. Yet, Thomas, her actual son, didn't show any sign of sadness. Instead, he acted as if he had become the absolute ruler of the house, showing a complete change in behavior. Thomas had always been quiet at home since the beginning of our marriage. Since Mark passed away, he has been working late every night as the president of the company inherited from his parents. Because of this, he rarely paid attention to our home life, leaving all the important household decisions to me. But I didn't mind it. He was always a man of few words, even when we first met, and Sandra had told me,
Thomas may seem gruff and not talk much, but he's not a bad kid.
So, for the past 22 years, I've just accepted that we didn't talk much as a couple. However, after Sandra's death, I've felt Thomas becoming increasingly harsh with me. Things he used to do himself, he now orders me to do.
Hey, why didn't you prepare my change of clothes for my bath?
What? You usually do it yourself.
Not what? As my wife, it's only natural for you to take care of your husband.
Sure, as a housewife, maybe I should be taking care of these things, but until now, he's never asked me for such trivial favors. I was surprised by his sudden change, but complied obediently. All right, sorry. I'll get your change of clothes ready. Maybe he didn't say anything before because I was busy taking care of his parents. Perhaps he couldn't act superior in front of them. I was just baffled by Thomas's behavior. Being mostly at home, I didn't have any close friends to talk to about these things. The only person I could confide in was Jennifer, who often visited our home during weekdays. Jennifer is Thomas's cousin, Robert's wife. Robert's father is Mark's brother, but since his brother had children first, Robert is 5 years older than Thomas, at 50. His wife, Jennifer, is also older than me, at 48, and has always been a reliable source of advice. Today, as our husbands were at work, Jennifer came over to visit. Seeing me at the door, she looked concerned and peered into my face. Lisa, what's wrong? You look pale. Surprised by her question, I touched my cheek and widened my eyes.
Do I? I hadn't noticed.
Have you been going through something tough recently? If you want, you can talk to me about it. Indeed, I've been feeling disgruntled with Thomas lately. I decided to share with Jennifer about how Thomas has changed since Sandra's passing. It turned into a bit of a rant, but Jennifer listened quietly.
I'm sorry, I haven't had anyone to talk to about this, so it just built up.
That's okay. It's tough,
especially with him suddenly becoming short-tempered when he used to be so calm.
Jennifer seemed to be pondering something. Her husband Robert is the executive vice president of Thomas's company and often talks about work at home. Jennifer might be recalling something she heard from Robert about Thomas at the company. Robert looked at me as if he had an idea.
He seems like, how do I put it, he always wants to be on top. From what I hear, that's how he acts at the company.
I was surprised by her words.
Really? Thomas at home doesn't seem like that at all. I never noticed.
What does it mean for him to want to be on top? Thomas has always been quiet, just reading the newspaper at home, so I never thought about what other sides he might have. As I shared this, she slightly smiled and said,
I have a friend who lived with her husband's parents, and it seems common for husbands to push the responsibility of their parents onto their wives and act docile at home. But such husbands often become authoritative once the parents pass away, so it's definitely something to be wary of.
Thinking about it, that might be true. He is exactly like that now. Thank you, Jennifer. It was good to talk about it. I'll keep that in mind when dealing with Thomas from now on.
Yes, do that. And if anything happens, make sure to contact me.
Talking to her made me feel better. That night, I found myself humming happily while doing the household chores. When Thomas got home and saw me, he looked puzzled.
What's with the carefree face and humming? Oh, welcome back.
My cheerful response seemed to irritate him further, his expression growing sterner. Curious about his obvious displeasure at my good mood, I casually asked,
You seem to be in a bad mood. Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong. It's just, seeing you doing household chores with such a carefree look annoys me. Why is that?
I couldn't understand what Thomas meant. Did he dislike that I, who have been a housewife for these 22 years, was doing household chores? While pondering this, Thomas muttered loud enough for me to hear, leaving me speechless.
Useless now that there's no need for caregiving and we don't have kids.
So, Thomas thinks I'm lounging around because I'm no longer burdened with Sandra's care, despite the fact that not having children was his decision. What should I say in response? Arguing back might only worsen the situation. I decided to take a moment to calm down.
Maybe you're right. Now that I have more time, I should look for a job. Hey, just so you know, taking a part-time job around here is out of the question. It'd look bad for the wife of a wealthy family to work part-time in the neighborhood.
Thomas, indeed as Jennifer mentioned, started acting arrogantly right after Sandra passed away, clearly wanting to appear superior to those around him. It reminded me again how men seem to feel they're on top once their parents are gone.
If part-time is not an option, maybe I'll look for a full-time position then.
But halfway through, I hesitated, worried about my ability to suddenly work full-time after 22 years. Thomas, noticing my silence, poured out more harsh words.
I never wanted to marry in the first place since I'm not interested in women. Mom insisted I marry you. But now that Mom's gone, I don't see the need for a wife. What? Well, meeting you was more about maintaining appearances as the future president.
Thomas kept on, taking advantage of my inability to retort. This might be beyond just arrogance. Thinking about my future with Thomas filled me with dread.
So, are you saying you want me to leave?
No, I didn't say that. Just think about what you can do for yourself while I'm gone on a business trip for a week starting tomorrow.
Why does Thomas only speak so domineeringly? Realizing arguing was futile, I simply responded, Okay. During Thomas's week-long business trip, I spent my time in a state of dissatisfaction. I considered just leaving and going to live with my mother, Betty. But, doubting my own capabilities, I lacked the confidence to make it on my own if we divorced. After all, my mother had raised me by herself. I couldn't possibly burden her now. As these thoughts weighed on me, my mobile phone rang. It was my mother calling, so I quickly answered.
Lisa, it's been so long. How have you been?
I'm fine, Mom. Hearing my mother's voice after such a long time gave me a bit of joy. My mom is currently working hard in a place far away, making it impossible for her to come visit right away. That's why she couldn't attend Sandra's funeral. She had been close friends with Sandra and regretted not being able to attend, but she mentioned she'd be coming back soon since her work has finally slowed down. The thought of seeing my mother again soon made me happy. I'm really looking forward to seeing you.
Yes, we'll need to make a proper visit to Sandra's grave to apologize for my absence at the funeral.
My mother has profound reasons for feeling so deeply about Sandra. I'm really looking forward to the day she comes back. Even after ending the call, my spirits were still high. Then, Thomas returned from his business trip. He was much later than expected. It was already past midnight. Seeming to have been drinking, Thomas was staggering drunk.
Hey, I'm home now.
As soon as he said that, he fell at the entrance without taking off his shoes, making a loud noise, and then fell asleep right there. So, I took off his shoes and, with Thomas's arm over my shoulder, carried him to the bedroom. While I was carrying him, his wallet fell from his pocket, so after I had settled Thomas, I picked it up. The wallet was open, with bills and cards spilling out. As I gathered them to put back into the wallet, I noticed a small instant camera photo inside. Looking closely, it was a picture of Thomas with a woman in her 30s and a young boy, all looking happy together. Almost like a family photo. A folded piece of paper lay with the photo. Opening it, I discovered it was a divorce petition, already filled out with Thomas's name. So, he wants to divorce me and marry this woman? I tried to wake Thomas by shaking his shoulder.
Thomas, wake up for a second.
Thomas barely opened his eyes and started mumbling in his sleep.
Huh? Lisa, take care of all my stuff. What?
Was he referring to tidying up his belongings from the trip? But then, that wouldn't account for all his belongings. Since clothes can be cleaned at hotels during business trips, meaning there should be less luggage. Perhaps he's planning to divorce and leave the house. But that would mean I'd become the head of the household. This house has been passed down through generations, so I can't decide alone about the house. Thinking this, I called Robert and his wife Jennifer, the closest relatives I have, first thing the next morning. It was Sunday, so Robert was at home, but Jennifer answered the phone. Ah, Jennifer? Sorry for calling so early in the morning. I wanted to discuss something while Thomas is asleep.
Yeah, I'm up early anyway. But it sounds like something's up.
I explained about the photo and the divorce petition found in Thomas's wallet, and that he told me to take care of all his stuff. Jennifer, consulting with Robert next to her, tried to think of some advice. Then, I heard Robert's voice in the background.
A week-long business trip?
Robert sounded puzzled. That made me question it too. Jennifer, could you put Robert on the phone? After I asked, Robert came on the line.
Hello? What's this about the boss being away on a week-long business trip?
Well, Thomas often says he's going on long business trips and leaves home for a week at a time.
There's never been such a long business trip for the boss. When he says he's on a business trip, it's usually just for 1 to 2 nights.
Robert's words sparked something in me. Fake long business trips, and photos with an unknown woman and a child who looks like hers. After sharing this, Robert seemed to have an idea and said,
Could that be? Lisa, do you have that photo with you now?
Yes, I do.
Then, could you take a picture of it with your mobile phone and send it to either me or Jennifer?
Following his request, I quickly took a photo of the photo with my mobile phone and sent it to Jennifer. After seeing the image, Robert informed me.
This woman, she used to work at our company. So it was true.
What's going on, Robert? I asked, and Robert replied with a slightly uncomfortable tone. Well, this woman, Angela, she was our office clerk until 2 years ago. Robert explained that there were rumors around the office that Angela, the clerk, was having an affair with Thomas, the president, and that she had resigned 2 years ago. At that time, Some employees speculated she might have been pregnant. If the child in the photo was born from that pregnancy, his age would nearly match. If this story is true, then Thomas is likely the father of the child. Could it be that Thomas was visiting this mother and child during his so-called long business trips? Perhaps thinking it's better for women to discuss such matters, Robert handed the phone back to Jennifer.
Lisa, are you okay? Keep your spirits up. I've thought of something good.
Jennifer then advised me on what to do next. After consulting with Robert about matters concerning the house, being close and regularly discussing everything with Jennifer, our conversation flowed smoothly even in this situation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thomas will be gone for a week starting the day after tomorrow, so I'll take action then.
Indeed, Thomas was planning a long business trip starting the day after tomorrow, leaving the house empty for a week. This timing was perfect for me, because my mother would be returning in 3 days. I informed my mother about Thomas and Jennifer's suggestion via email. The next day, I prepared for Thomas's fake business trip. Thomas, impressed by my preparations, commented,
"See, you can do it when you try. It would be nice if you could always manage things like this without being told."
It seemed Thomas didn't remember what he said that night, probably because he was drunk. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, my mom's coming back the day after tomorrow. You'll be on your trip, so you won't see her, but I'll send her your regards."
Huh, the mother working far away is coming back? She looked so poor in her shabby clothes at our wedding.
Thomas always speaks ill of my mother like this. It's not like she was working away to be derogatory. He just assumes we were a poor family because I came from a single-parent home. I don't bother correcting him, it's too much hassle. The next morning, Thomas left the house. Right after, I started acting on Jennifer's advice. The following day, just before noon, my mother arrived at our house. Jennifer, wanting to meet my mother too, joined us, and the 3 of us went out to eat. My mother, despite calling it a visit, was busy with work and could only spare today. She had to leave tonight.
I saw your email. You've been through a lot. But the house is all tidied up now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Since you came back, we had nothing at home and had to eat out. Did you get my part sorted out?
Yes, perfectly. It was sudden, so we couldn't go together, but I'm always ready for you.
My mother handed me an airplane ticket while saying this. Lucky you, Lisa. It seems everything will work out. I'm curious to see how Thomas reacts when he returns.
Yeah, it's all thanks to Jennifer. I'd be lost without her.
I was truly grateful for having a strong ally like her. And it was fortunate timing that my mother could return just when needed. Over the next 4 days, I quickly arranged everything and filed for divorce. Then, I left on a plane with the ticket my mother gave me. At dawn, checking my mobile phone, I noticed several missed calls. As expected, they were from Thomas. Waiting for him to call again, it wasn't long before his call came through.
Hey! Why didn't you answer your phone? I just woke up. Huh? It's past noon.
Thomas said that, but it was early morning where I was.
Well, that doesn't matter. What does matter is I came home to find the house empty. Where did you take all my stuff? Oh, you told me to take care of all your stuff. So, I threw everything away. What? When did I ever ask you to do that?
Thomas, apparently due to his drunkenness at the time, seems to have no recollection of it all. He continued to question further.
Also, the car seems to be missing. Did you take it? And where are you now? I'm in France, at my mom's house.
My response seemed to leave Thomas speechless for a moment, as there was a pause of silence. Since he didn't retort, I continued the conversation.
Oh, about the car, I sold it before we moved. And the house has been sold too, so please move out as soon as possible. Wait a minute. First off, your mother being in France has to be a lie, right? Lying won't help. Come back immediately.
Thomas was unaware of my mother's success in managing an apparel brand in France. And the poor-looking dress my mother wore to our wedding was actually her own design, a product of her brand. Thomas, unfamiliar with the brand, probably thought it looked poor. Looking back, Thomas had never involved himself in discussions between our families even before we got married. He just assumed my mother was laboring away somewhere far because I came from a single-parent home. Sandra was a regular customer at my mother's store in Japan. That's why my mother was close to Sandra, and I knew Sandra since I was a child. When I explained all this, he suddenly burst out laughing.
Are you kidding? I get your mother's story, but this house has been passed down in my family. You can't just sell it.
I sighed, realizing he was going to say something like this.
It seems you weren't aware of something important. What are you talking about?
Sandra had left a will giving me the house and land in recognition of the 20 years I spent caring for her. It seemed Sandra understood that although Thomas had taken over Mark's company, he was an unreliable president, leaving all significant responsibilities to Robert, the executive vice president. And Thomas, doing nothing at home, had left even the purchase of the car to me. Therefore, the car was registered in my name. Thomas hadn't fulfilled his role in either the family or the company. So, Sandra, worried about my future, entrusted me with everything. Robert and Jennifer had agreed to this during a family meeting. Though Thomas was present, he hadn't paid any attention and knew nothing about it.
So, that's the situation. And about your fake long business trips, the company already knows. You were going to see that woman Angela, weren't you?
Thomas raised his voice when I mentioned Angela. I continued as if delivering the final blow.
Angela's child is yours, right? There was quite a bit of talk about your relationship within the company. Right now, Robert is looking into the resignation records. Resignees have to be kept on file for 3 years by law.
Even when I asked, Thomas didn't respond. He probably left everything about the company to Robert. Knowing Robert, he would personally go to Angela's place to find out the truth. Seemingly resigned, Thomas murmured loudly, "Just come back once, will you? I want to talk things through properly with Lisa. After all, we are married."
Oh, we're not married anymore. I've signed and submitted the divorce papers you brought back from your fake business trip.
Shocked, Thomas exclaimed,
Why would you do such a thing? That was just to reassure Angela because she kept nagging about when we would get divorced. I never intended to divorce you.
Creating a child elsewhere, yet refusing to divorce. That must be his concern for appearances. Trying to maintain his marriage with me, his official wife, while also valuing his mistress. But I'm no longer swayed by such thoughts.
There are still matters to settle regarding the sale of the house and division of property. So, I'll be returning to the US once. We'll talk more then,
I said and hung up. A month later, I returned to the US to handle various procedures. Without a home, we gathered at Robert's house. There, not only Thomas, but also Angela and her son Anthony were present. Thomas seemed to be living with her now. Angela, holding Anthony, looked at me fearfully.
I never intended to steal Thomas. He forced himself on me. Now, I'm just overwhelmed with raising a child, so I really can't afford any compensation.
Angela appeared to be a timid woman. Yet, she was desperately defending her position before I had even asked anything.
There's no need to be so frightened. I won't demand any money from you. It's Thomas who will be compensating.
Pointing at Thomas, I said this, and his eyes widened.
That's the same thing. Taking money from me will only make life harder for Angela and Anthony.
It seems a paternity test confirmed that the child was indeed Thomas's.
Well, that's the consequence of having an affair. You two will just have to do your best. Thomas seems to need to start job hunting too.
My words left Thomas and Angela frozen. The rumor of the affair and the resulting child, leading to the divorce from me, his official wife, spread throughout the company. A meeting was held without Thomas, deciding that he would resign, and Robert, the executive vice president, would take over as president. Jennifer kept me updated on these developments. After explaining everything to Thomas, Robert placed a hand on Thomas's shoulder.
So, Mr. President, you will be resigning at the end of this month.
Thomas froze, eyes wide open, unable to move. Beside him, Angela, holding Anthony, was shedding tears. I felt sorry for their son, Anthony, for what had happened. But now, it's undeniable that Thomas and Angela, as his parents, need to support him together. Later, I received an email from Thomas. According to it, Thomas, now unemployed, was being supported by Angela, who worked part-time. However, despite this, Thomas did not participate in childcare at all. Unable to bear it anymore, Angela left Anthony with her parents. Alone with Thomas, the situation worsened as he began to shout at her. It was clear what would happen if he spoke such harsh words to a woman who seemed so timid. Angela, in tears, returned to her parents and never came back. As a result, Thomas fell into poverty and, not knowing what to do, emailed me. When I didn't reply and left him be, he called me.
Lisa, why are you ignoring me? It's your fault everything turned out this way. I've lost everything now, money, job. What am I supposed to do now?
The money, including what I received as compensation and from selling the house and land, should have been divided between us. He likely squandered it, given his lack of financial sense. Fed up with his selfish complaints, I retorted.
What? You're acting like you're the only victim here? You turned my life into a mess by choosing me as a spouse just for appearances. I could have married someone better. How will you compensate for ruining my life?
Of course, I didn't mean it. But Thomas, possibly believing it, seemed at a loss for words and just ended the call with,
Fine. Fine.
Thomas, showing no remorse for his actions in either his career or family life, will likely continue to struggle finding work and live in poverty. Though I once accused Thomas of ruining my life, I now view all experiences as valuable and maintain a positive outlook. Despite everything, I'm currently enjoying life in France with my mother, studying French. I aim to leverage my 20 years of caregiving experience to pursue a career in care here, as France has many care facilities. My mother, just over 70 and still actively working, I plan to eventually take care of her. However, when I mention this to her, she slightly puffs up and says,
I'm still in the prime of my life. I doubt I'll need any care while I'm alive.
Her bravado makes her seem all the more strong and dear to me. My mother lives life on her own terms, without concern for appearances. She remains my eternal role model as a woman. Therefore, I plan to keep pursuing my dreams by her side.